What's up? Welcome back to the Beyond Jiu Jitsu podcast. This is episode 139. You are joined by Kieren Lefebvre and Adam Childs.
International. Kieren has landed in Sweden.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, guys, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. People who have listened to the last few episodes, you would know Kieren has moved to Sweden. So, I mean, I don't think he's done much between last episode and now other than moving countries. But,
We're flat out.
So, I mean, I haven't really spoken to him much, but we're going to...
That's true, actually. We've barely spoken.
Yes, but we'll veer a little bit away from the Keeping Up with Kieren's episodes as of late because we do have other stuff to touch upon. But firstly, we'll just quickly ask the question: how was the initial move to Sweden?
Stressful. I had to throw out like 8 kilos worth of stuff at the airport because my bag weighed in at like 39 kilos when my limit was, or 38 kilos rather, when my limit was no more than 30. So I literally threw out clothes, boots, jeans, a gi. I threw out my gi, my blue gi. It's in the bin at Sydney Airport. I kept my belt. I contemplated throwing that bitch out too.
Throwing your belt out.
Yeah, I don't need this shit. No, I threw out so much stuff. I threw out a tripod as well, like a $300 tripod. So I think...
How were you so overweight? Like, did you not weigh your bag?
I just ate a lot of cake, baby. No, so I weighed my bag.
Did you just weigh it by doing a bicep curl and you're like, yeah, it feels about right?
Yeah, fucking easy. 10 reps. Yeah, that's about 25. I've just got real strong. No, I did the whole because the bag's so big, I step on the scale, get my weight, and then pick up the bag, hold it, and step on the scale. You know that old trick?
Yeah.
And then deduct my weight from the total.
So your shit at math is what
yeah, pretty much. I can't count past 5. I didn't see that it would be a problem, but here we are. I guess my second grade math teacher gets the last laugh. No, but in all seriousness, that's how we did it. And the bag came in at 30 kilos. But then we stayed at my mum's place because she's away, right? So she let me stay at her place for the couple of days before we got on the plane. And somehow, in those couple of days, the weight went from 30 kilos to 38. I don't know how it happened. Honestly, I don't know.
Packed more shit in there for some reason.
I don't know. But like when we're throwing shit out, my partner had put, I shit you not, like $2 shampoo, like over a kilo worth of fucking shampoo that she wanted to bring.
Why?
Like, why?
Would you?
Fucking why? I pull out 1.5 kilos of fucking shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. I'm like, babe, this is literally like $5. I was about to pay $60 so you could bring your fucking shampoo. Like, because it's 60. Because at the airport they charge you $60 per fucking kilo, man. It is insane. Like, they can jam it.
Jesus.
And the lady at the airport, she was like pretty nice about it, but you could tell that she was kind of sick of my shit after it. And and my carry-on was overweight as well. But by that stage, we'd spent nearly 45 minutes trying to pack, repack, throw out, and like I was dripping with sweat. I was stressed out as fuck, and there's the line was huge, and she was like at the end of it, she was looking at a colleague, and she was like, it's fine, but with your carry-on still overweight, you're gonna have to fix it. They'll probably weigh your bag at the gate, so sort it out before then. And we're like, oh yeah, we'll sort it out. Yeah. Didn't sort it out. Oh man, and the whole time I was just stressing that they were gonna weigh my carry-on at the gate, because my carry-on is only meant to be like 7 kilos. Mine was 12, Julia's was also 10. And I had a backpack as a personal item that was clearly just a second carry-on. It was 10 kilos as well. So I had a fuckload of shit, man. Anyway, it was...
Yeah, it's hard to move countries, bro. Yeah, a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And now you've landed in Sweden. You're a couple of hours north of Stockholm, from memory.
Yep.
Haven't done any training yet, though, right?
No, zero. No. So we got hit up on our Beyond Jiu Jitsu podcast Instagram by a guy that lives in Sweden, and he was like, "Oh, hey, like I heard on the episode you're moving to Sweden. Where are you going? Like, hit me up for any advice. I've been living here for 10 years. He's a Brit.
Blue belt.
He's British.
Yeah, British guy, right?
Yeah. I think he's. I might not put his Instagram handle out on blast, but really nice guy. Anyway, he hit us up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm living in this small town here. It's next to this town. And then I've read his Instagram handle, and in his handle, he says he's from Falun, which is literally like 45 minutes drive up the road, and is where one of my gyms that I'm going to be training at is. So I'm going to be training at 2 gyms, one at Falun and one in
45 minutes is considered up the road. Where you
oh yeah. Yeah, it's like literally around the corner. Man, I showed you out the window. For those that are just listening, like I showed Adam out the window before we started recording. It's like fucking, small town. I'm out in the bush, mate. I'm out in the forest. Anyway, yeah, it's just up the road. And like, so I'm going to be training between 2 academies, and he sort of explained it to me. And it's like, hey, there's one at Bisberg, and there's one at Falun, which is the 2 like towns that are about 20 minutes drive apart, and I'm about 20 minutes from the closest one. So another 20 minutes would be Falun. And he's like, yeah, well, like our new coach, my new coach, is going to be, our coach. So yeah, it was really interesting. He's explaining how the system works, and it's just a small world, right? That someone listened to the podcast and was like, oh, cool, let's hit this guy up. And it turns out I'm literally going to be training with him.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And so like Sweden's not a small country. It's fucking huge, man. Like to drive from the top of Sweden to the bottom would take you like 20 hours.
So when are you going to, 20 hours, is that it? Like actually?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I'm making shit up at this point. But it takes 10 hours to drive from where I am to the other side. So people always talk about
Are you on one particular
Gothenburg.
Are you on one particular border of Sweden?
Sort of, yeah, because I'm like, north. I'm kind of, if you look at a map of Sweden, I'm sort of in the middll.
I'm just thinking about the title of this episode being Adam and Kieren share their lack of geography.
Yeah. Yeah. If you look at the long ass skinny fucking country of Sweden, I'm sort of in the middle, but like if you go directly in the middle, just go a little bit south, go meep, and there I am. I'm not giving away my exact location. You
just named the 2 gyms you're going to be training at.
Ah, shit. I don't know. We hand out your address, so if anything, you're more.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, if you were to try to drive to what people know as Gothenburg, which is the other, I think the second most populated city in Sweden, that's about 10 hours away from me. So people always say things like, oh, you should go check out Gothenburg. But it's like, yeah, well, I have to get on a fucking plane. But it's pronounced, for the Scandies or the Swedish people out there, it's Göteborg. Or the non-Swedish, I should say.
I ain't learning that, bro. Jesus.
Göteborg.
Hard enough learning all the Japanese names that people start adding to jiu-jitsu moves.
Yeah, true that.
So when are you going to train? It's Wednesday now. Next week?
I don't know. Fucking,
so there's a little bit of, yeah.
No one gives a shit. No one's hitting me up. No one's messaging me on WhatsApp. Where are you, bro? Like, why aren't you training? Like, I've got no accountability, bro. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Am I not? Am I training tomorrow? Am I training soon? I don't know.
Hang on, let me just kick you out of the gym's WhatsApp group.
You bastard.
Yeah, no, it takes a bit of time to settle in after moving and whatever. But
I'm still jet lagged. It's fucked.
Yeah. But I'd hope to think by the time by next week's episode, we can be touching on what the training's like there.
Yeah.
Better be, Kieren. Anyway, moving on. That's enough Kieren talk. Sick of his face.
Let's talk about Adam.
Yeah. No, so there's actually a lot happened in the week 10 days while you were traveling, at least in the jiu-jitsu scene. Quite a few things happened. So there were kind of 3 notable things that went down. So and for once, I actually know a little bit more about them.
Ooh, you know what you're talking about for once. Kieren. Holy shit.
Sometimes. Well, usually you come up with an absurd amount of research.
You mean like a 20-minute Google before the episode?
Well, I have done a 5-minute Google. So we had BJJ Stars Battlefield, which perhaps not a lot of people know about, but BJJ Stars is kind of like, it's who's number one, but in Brazil, if you will, maybe. It's like a similar sort of event where it's just super fights and whatnot. But a little different, that this actually worked like a bracket, like in a competition. And this one was quite unique. So BJJ Stars, it was just an absolute division. So there were 16 competitors, so like a full standard bracket, and it was absolute. And there were quite a few big names in it. So prior to recording, Kieren was like, yeah, whatever. I don't know who half those people are. They wear pajamas, blah, blah, blah. But, still a bunch of the top names like Mica Galvao was there. Kaynan was there. Patrick Goido, Adam Wazinski. I never pronounced his last name correctly. Felipe Andrew, Victor Hugo, Cyborg.
Oh, I know like all those guys.
Yeah, Devontae Johnson. So
I was talking about
Eric
the other
Muniz.
people that I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, Eric Muniz is one of those other people you didn't know, who's a black belt world champion from Dream Art, no longer from Dream Art. But anyway, so quite a few big names, and man, it was quite a good. It was quite a good tournament, a really good bracket, and it was quite entertaining. So if you didn't see any of it, one of the biggest matches at the start was Mica Galvao and
I saw this one.
And what's his name? Otavio Nalati. Big, massive dude. So if you haven't seen that, the weight difference, it kind of, I mean, it's not quite on the scale of when Mikey Musumeci fought that massive guy in the absolute division at Euros, I think it was. But it was similar-ish sort of thing. It's just such a massive, big mismatch. And then there was some controversy as well. So have you seen any of the controversy or anything that happened in it?
No. I've only seen the Instagram highlight of Mica taking this big dude's back and like choking him.
Yeah. So that was, which I don't know if he actually got the finish or he got, or
did he?
I can't recall. Sorry. But so there was some controversial things that happened in it. Well, I don't think they were controversial, but anyway. So you had Mica Galvao and Kaynan was a match, which you would go, man, like that's got a recipe for a barn burner, like two very
Kaynan would just dominate him.
Yeah, well, you would think that, right? But Mica won that fight.
Oh, what?
Yeah, so okay,
have I not seen this?
So you know nothing about what happened.
Yeah,
okay.
What the hell?
But it's quite funny because Mica swept him, okay, and then Mica won due to DQ because Kaynan got disqualified. So what had happened is Kaynan was on the bottom because he got swept by Mica, and he went into that reverse X guard where you elevate to enter into the saddle on the far leg. Kieran's looking up, thinking,
yep.
You know what I mean?
I got it. Yep.
Which is perfectly legal. You then just can't attack the leg that's in the saddle.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Because it's in the gi.
It's a trap leg. Yep.
But then that resulted in, from that position, Kaynan attacked a lateral knee bar on Mica's Mica's leg that was in the saddle, right? Which a knee bar is fine if he had rotated his hips around and whatever, but he didn't. Anyway, he got DQ'd. And from the post-fight interviews with Kaynan and everything, it all seemed fine in the sense that Kaynan wasn't calling bullshit or anything. Like Kaynan was straight up like, man, I made a mistake. You know, those were the rules. He did kind of say it's a bit shit to get disqualified for that at this level. Like, you're talking about the top 1% black belts in the world, right? He's like,
but it's a bit shit that he didn't. No, it's shit that he didn't understand the rule set of his, of the comp he was in.
Well, it's also like
I get what he's saying.
A lateral knee bar a lateral knee bar has never been legal in the gi. So, like, I mean, I get what he's saying, but also, anyway. But he didn't blame anyone except himself.
Class act.
He was like, I made a mistake, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But then apparently the story goes, after that, Mica fought Felipe Andrew, but was apparently like injured from the lateral knee bar, and because Mica was quite obviously in quite a bit of pain after it. And so then he lost to Felipe, whether it was due to the knee or not, but he lost. And then the final was Felipe Andrew and Eric Muniz, and Eric Muniz beat Felipe Andrew. But what came after this is quite a funny back and forth online argument between Nicholas Meregali and Mica Galvao's dad, right? So,
oh God, all right,
man, it's quite funny because apparently, attention, sorry. So let me just double check because Mica's father was sort of hinted towards that if it weren't for that illegal move, that Mica would have gone on to win, you know?
Yeah.
And some people claiming that Kaynan wanted to hurt Mica. But then Meregali...
Oh, come off it.
Yeah. So Meregali, who I don't disagree with, right, in what he said. So, and this is their argument was in Portuguese, obviously, but he wrote, Kaynan went into a Senkaku, right, a legal move in the way that he entered in, you know, and during the transition from the entry to the submission, he got disqualified. People are calling him a cheater and that he tried to break the leg and that Mica lost because of it. And then Meregali said, if Kaynan wanted to break Mica's knee in that position, he would have broken it, you know?
Yep.
But then Meregali also kind of took a bit of a dig at Mica's recent disqualification from Worlds and IBJJF due to taking a banned substance. He said, and judging that the move was absurd cheating against Mica just shows you're a retard. Mica used whatever the drugs, clopamine or whatever it is, to cheat a mass steroid use, and that wasn't seen as cheating. You know, people are experienced jiu-jitsu as if it were a Globo soap opera. So Globo is a TV station in Brazil, and if you guys don't know, soap operas or novellas from Brazil are incredibly famous, right? He goes, the people's lack of neurons is funny, right?
No, I agree.
Yeah, so I agree with Meregali. Perhaps he didn't need to bring up,
good take.
Perhaps he didn't need to bring up the steroid use, but saying
no, it's warranted.
Yeah, but if you watch the match, like, I mean, it's easy to watch the match of Mica and Kaynan and be like, come on, Kaynan, you're an ADCC champion and this and that, and how did you make that mistake? Like, it wasn't like, it doesn't look like you slipped or anything, but at the same time, you know, adrenaline's running high and whatever.
He probably does it in training all the time. You know?
Yeah, and it just happened. But it didn't look like at all there was any intent. The only thing, if I were to throw a bone to this argument for Mica's dad, the only bone that I could throw would be that I know what it's like being in a position in a competition where you're essentially in a submission or position that you know is illegal in that rule set. So you don't want to tap because that's like just giving up the fight. You don't want to tap. You're almost kind of waiting for the ref to DQ the other person. Yep. And then that not happening and you getting injured and being forced to tap or whatever. So perhaps if it were in no-gi, perhaps Mica would have just tapped, right? But maybe Mica held on longer, which made Kaynan put the submission on for longer or put it on harder. And
waiting for the DQ.
Yeah,
very
right,
true.
Or whatever. But then anyway, so this is where it gets like quite funny as they go back and forth, and then Mica's dad's like, I'll just try paraphrase a lot of this, and he's like, you know, it's funny. It's funny you talking about respecting the public that Mica's built. You know, Mica's career based on steroids use forever. Can you imagine being a child who uses hormones to beat another child, or better yet, who uses hormones as a child to be able to fight adults? This seems a little disrespect.
Saying this?
So this is Meregali.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. I thought it was Mica's dad for a second. Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah. Because sorry, I skipped over. Sorry. So Mica's dad fought back, saying, what did he say? He said, where is it? He criticized his world champions properly. He laughed. He goes, why is talking about Meregali? Why is this cheap copy of Gordon so ugly? And he goes, you don't fight in Brazil anymore, remember? Unlike Mica, who loves to fight in Brazil, his career is being made in the States. You said that yourself, the choice was yours. You chose to deny your origins, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And then takes a dig at Mario,
Whatever.
not at Mario Hayes, but is like, but you couldn't expect anything more from a guy who denies his teacher from blue to black belt, is essentially saying you left Alliance and Mario Hayes, so don't be sad because Mica is loved and you're just a chicken dick. he's like, just do what Mica does, be polite and kind to the public, learn to have character, and the public will value you more. My conversation ends here. I'm not a psychologist to treat the mentally ill, is what he said. And then Mica Galvao is like, can you imagine being a child on testosterone, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Mario Hayes and I have enormous respect for each other. We've never said a bad word. We knew that I needed to leave for my career. I don't deny my origins. I'm just living abroad, developing my skills abroad that are necessary for my career. And then they start getting a bit political, and he's like, because when Mica entered, like his walkout, he was surrounded by a bunch of Amazonian people and everything, and then he's like, and just to remind you, using indigenous people to build a brand, yet openly vote for Bolsonaro, like the president, who is apparently very anti-indigenous Brazilians. And then he's just laughing. So then it got political, and I was like, okay, I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But so it was quite... They had a bit of an online banter.
That's pretty funny, though. That's pretty funny.
In my opinion, was just a mistake, right? A mistake by Kaynan, and obviously
he got DQ'd for it.
Yeah, and he got DQ'd, and it sucks that if that's resulted in a small or massive injury to his knee. I mean, there's speculation that he's torn his ACL from it, but I'm not sure if there's been an MRI or anything yet.
But I would say even if his ACL has been like partially torn, I would still have the same opinion that I have now, that it was unintentional. It's a byproduct of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, honestly, like from seeing accidental freak accidents to someone who is maliciously trying to hurt someone, this is neither of the two, really. It's not a freak accident, nor is there any malicious intent. It is just it just happened, right? I mean, he entered into a position, unfortunately, kind of was a lateral knee bar instead of a regular knee bar, and
well, see, to be honest,
happens.
I'm just waiting for Hannah Gracie's statement on it, that he's going to represent Mica in court, and 46 million's coming his way, and that's what I'm waiting for. But I'm kind of devastated that it ended that way. I really was looking forward to seeing two big natty boys being Mica Galvao.
Right. Because they're both
big
exactly
natty
they're
boys.
both known to be super clean, aren't they?
Big daddies.
But yeah, man, it was a good event. But then, also off the back of that, there were 8 big people who left Dream Art. And this one I'm a little less educated about. Like Eric Muniz is one who just won, the BJJ Stars. I honestly
so they followed their coach or something, right? They followed someone else out, from what I understand. So I'm not super familiar with Dream Art. I don't stay up to date with their drama.
Yeah, it says all 8 athletes will join Fratries Jiu Jitsu. I don't know where the fuck that is. I don't know, man. Like, some people are saying that it's because Dream Art are putting more of their efforts in the US and whatnot.
It's true.
For me, I don't really give a shit. I mean, people tend to by the day, people are leaving and dropping teams faster than ever. And, I think it's one thing to, we've spoken about this at length over the years. I'm all for people just picking whatever gym they want to train at, and I get that you build rapport and camaraderie and relationships with your teammates and your coach, but it is a business transaction, right? So it's a bit more different. Like, imagine if you're doing everything right for your customer, your student, and they choose to leave and train somewhere else. I mean that sucks, and you might wonder why, but they're still free to do it. When you're talking about people who it's their career, I mean, you do kind of have to do just what's best for your career. And yeah, that can be hard because of the emotional relationships that are built in jiu-jitsu. But if you know, you decide that the best thing for your career is to move and train with so-and-so, I mean, you're going to do it. I mean, and when you think about it, teams outside of pretty much IBJJF competitions mean absolutely nothing. Like, and I've said this before, as we go more towards events like BJJ Stars and who's number one and whatnot, and even now the fact that you in IBJJF still you have to fight your teammates. Remember we were talking about that a while back where you're not allowed to close out anymore.
Yep.
So, you know, team names are just becoming more and more obsolete. It's becoming like UFC. No one gives a shit what gym fucking Conor McGregor fights out of or what team he represents. Yeah, of course, like the physical gym he trains at, perhaps you're going to have a bunch of groupies go and want to train and join that gym and whatnot, but, you know, it doesn't really...
No, I get what you're saying. I was thinking about the same
teammates
parallel.
don't mean that much. As well as even the fact, even at IBJJF and that, for those who might not know, when you say like... you know, oh, whatever team, Atos, Alliance, Gracie Barra, Novunyao, whoever, so-and-so wins worlds, right? Like wins the world championship as a team. I'm not discounting that from the team and anyone involved, but the points accumulated are across all belts, remembering that white belts don't compete at worlds. So I know that even nowadays, blue belts, even white belts train like professional athletes, but you could argue that all the way up to brown belt, you're considered an amateur, and then black belt is when you turn pro, right? For argument's sake. Let's say boxing is the same. Like you could be one of the best boxers in the world, but I don't know exactly how it happens in boxing, but I know that there's like an official transition to when you're considered pro, right? And it's the same in, I believe it's the same in MMA, right? Like your amateur record is not reflected in your professional record. So you might have had 10 losses, but then you see this guy fighting in the UFC and it says he's, 5-0, right? Yep. It's like, because the amateur fights don't count on your professional record. So there is a transition. Yep. So you could, yes, there are obviously brown belts, purple belts, even blue belts who can beat plenty of black belts in the world. But if we're talking about on the competition scene, right? You could, I don't know why you're cheeky smiling. Kieran's like, yeah, I see all these blue belts smashing ads. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that all the way up until brown belt, you're still considered an amateur. Brown belts are the elite amateurs and black belts when you turn pro, right? Well, your team could win the team world championships without winning a single gold medal at black belt at that year's world championships, because it's at the worlds, a blue belt who wins gold adds just as many points to the team's tally as a black belt who wins the absolute division, so it kind of, again, I'm not taking anything away from teams Alliance has the most world titles. I think then it's Gracie Barra.
They probably have the most competitors, mate.
No, yeah, but that's also not how it works, because you can only have two competitors. Yeah. Obviously, the more competitors means you have more people. You have more people to choose your two from.
Yes,
but Gracie Barra would have the most competitors probably. But anyway. I'm not taking anything. Not taking anything.
I love you, Gracie Barra.
The new gym you're training at, you're like, it's a Gracie Barra. God damn it.
No, it's like it's a community gym. I think it's like a full volunteer program.
Yeah, right. It should be interesting.
I'm talking
way
shit.
To get paid.
Don't think you do, Adam. I think that's the volunteer element.
But yeah, anyway, it's not taking anything away from those team world titles, but, does it mean as much as I used to think it means? I don't think so. And I think that's also just not necessarily just me who's changed. I think it's just the culture of jiu-jitsu changing as well.
No, it's the kids that are changed.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, that was BJJ Stars and a few top athletes leaving Dream Art, and there'll be more people who join Dream Art, and then more people who leave, and then and then one day the Rotolo brothers will leave Atos, and then it's just how it goes, man. But yeah, so something that maybe less people know about, especially internationally. This is maybe more domestic news, but there's this guy called Lachlan Giles. Kieren, who is Lachlan Giles? Never heard of him.
LG, he's my boy. Yeah, so Lachlan Giles burst into the scene in 2019, where he appeared at ADCC and shocked the world by winning third place, by winning a bronze medal in the absolute division, taking out some
when Lockie's a small guy too.
Yeah, he's a small guy. So basically, he burst onto the scene. You've probably seen him. He's very famous for his K-guard, heel hook, domination.
Backside 50-50,
backside
50-50,
yeah,
that stuff.
Yeah.
He's also, he's the...
He created
I don't think people... Yeah, Submeta. I don't think people would necessarily maybe don't look at him or associate him with being a coach of Craig Jones. A lot of people will see Craig Jones under John Danaher now, but Lachlan gave Craig Jones his black belt, also gave Jeremy Paul Skinner, one of Australia's top black belts at the moment, gave Jeremy Paul Skinner his black belt, and his wife Livia Giles, who is a very high level competitor.
Did he give JT's black belt?
Gave JT's black belt.
Shout out to
Livia,
JT.
Yeah, Livia are less prominent on the scene at the moment after having a baby and currently having a second baby in her belly. So obviously,
did she eat it? What's going on?
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so Lockie has been given a $100,000 grant to help fund and grow Australian Jiu Jitsu.
100,000 US.
100,000 US, which
yeah.
I don't know. Let me at the time.
Let's get the conversion. Yes, we got $100,000 US from an anonymous donor.
Yeah, so that's like $150,000 in Australia.
Boom. So that was that $100,000 US is to go toward developing jiu-jitsu in Australia. And I think it's been left open to Lachlan's interpretation on what that means and how to achieve it, I believe.
Yeah, so I spoke to him the other day to get a little bit more
inside information.
Yeah, to get a little bit more clarification.
With the hookups. I didn't realize you're so famous, Adam.
Oh my God, I know people and stuff. Yeah, so I mean, I've known Lockie for years, right? I've known him since I was a purple belt or something. But I mean, I guess we're definitely friends, but it's not like we go out to dinner and stuff. I know him well, but yeah, anyway.
Invite him out to dinner then, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
why are you being an asshole?
hold my hand.
You've never invited me out to dinner either. I'm just saying. We've never had a meal together, Adam. We've never had a meal together.
You can eat your salad with no dressing while I eat my cake.
How do you know that?
But anyway, I'll just give you so he's also set some requirements for people to apply for it, okay, for this grant. Now, one question that I didn't get answered because I forgot to ask him and then quickly sent him a message saying, shit, forgot to ask you this. And unfortunately, I didn't hear back from him in time.
You only get one shot.
You get one shot. He grants me one reply per year. That's our relationship. But,
yeah, you got to invoice.
Yeah.
You got to pay for it.
In terms of how the funds are distributed, that I'm not sure. So I'm not sure if it's kind of okay, there'll be 10 athletes and they'll get 10K each, or it'll be a case-by-case basis. Not really sure. But there are some requirements. So they must be a brown or black belt with existing outstanding international outstanding
bullshit, Lockie.
International achievements. What do you mean? What does he mean by outstanding international achievements? Well, you would have had to medal at brown or black belt in the adult division at one of the major comps like Worlds, Pans, Euros, and that needs to be from 2019 to current, so over the last 4 years, or, if you did well at the recent ADCC trials. He also mentions you have to at least one match. He's like, if you've got a medal because it was by default, that doesn't count, right? He's also written that you must be an Australian citizen and have either started jiu-jitsu in Australia or progressed through the ranks in Australia, right? So it's very specific to Australian athletes and competitors, okay? You also need to spend at least 8 months of the year in Australia. So that doesn't mean you have to own a gym or whatever, but he wants it to be, it's to grow jiu-jitsu athletes and the scene in Australia. So obviously, I mean, Craig Jones wouldn't qualify just based on the fact that he doesn't need the help in the sense, you know, he's not an up and coming.
He's got more money than all of us, mate.
Yeah, that's right. But you know what I mean? Like Craig wouldn't qualify because he lives overseas, you know, 51 weeks of the year, right? Like he just wouldn't qualify. You can't have a criminal record or any sexual misconduct or violence or anything like that. And then no PEDs. And if they're rumors, you may be asked to be tested. Okay. So they're his requirements. So I asked Lockie about no PEDs, bro. So I asked Lockie
let's get into Lockie's replies.
Yeah. So so some of the questions that I followed up with him is firstly I asked, okay, did this anonymous donor come out of nowhere? Or is this something that's been in the works for a while, right?
Good question.
Yeah. And what I can tell you is that I know the donor is anonymous. That's all I know about the donor. Yeah,
You're a fucking loser, man.
So I actually thought that question was pretty just like I was never going to ask who it is. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's an anonymous donor.
Yeah, it's an anonymous donor. You're not going to be like, hey, tell us who it is. I promise I won't publish it.
Yeah, but I was just curious as if he was like completely blindsided. Someone just approached him and said, here you go. Or if it was something that him and this person had been working on for a while, or this idea had been maturing for a while. And to my surprise, he just kind of said, for that particular question, he just said no comment, which.
Fair enough. Yeah, good.
Which I assume he said no comment because the only reason I can think, and I'll theory craft as to why he would say no comment, is that perhaps for people who know Lockie far better than I do, like maybe his students and people who.
They can narrow it down.
They might be able to narrow it down. Like if he said it's been something that's been working on for a while, or if he said it came out of the blue and then his students are like, we just had this like billionaire dude join the gym, right? Like,
from Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, from Abu Dhabi, right? Exactly. So
we had this oil prince from. I've heard secondhand information that people are like theorizing that it was Craig Jones that donated the money, but I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know. Could be. I'm not sure. I mean,
I don't know why he wouldn't do it anonymously. like from what I know of Craig.
And I don't know.
And he does a lot for Australian Jiu Jitsu already. I don't know, man.
And I don't know. Maybe it is Craig, but I mean, $100,000 is a lot of money. I mean, Craig Jones does well, but I mean, even if he was
do that well?
Even if he was making millions of dollars, I mean, $100,000 is still. Like if you're making $1 million, it's still 10% of your, like it's a lot of money, bro. Like,
to be donating for like a random cause like that. Like it's awesome. Like don't get me wrong. It's awesome for Australia.
And maybe it is Craig. And if it is, that's fucking awesome. If it's not, whoever it is awesome.
But Craig would have been able to do so much more with that 100K himself than to donate it, in my opinion, because of his brand. He would have been able to leverage $100,000 plus brand deals on top of that to grow Australian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah,
I think
Craig
if it was Craig, he wouldn't do that.
Yeah, Craig seems pretty switched on, especially with his online personality and his Instagram.
Craig could carry
and his
100K
YouTube.
way further than doing it anonymously.
Yeah, I think so. But anyway, I figured he just said no comment because for people who are in Lockie's inner circle, perhaps even answering that kind of
could have been part of the agreement.
Yeah. I mean, and I just figured that would people would narrow it down just off that vague question. So anyway, so then I asked, all right, well, of course the goal's to grow jiu-jitsu in Australia, but I asked if he could elaborate on the specifics. What's the overall goal? Do you want to see, Australia's first black belt world champion, simply more Australians competing, better quality gyms in Australia? And his response was, well, that his directions were simply that he was to use the funds to help up and coming jiu-jitsu athletes, and that was it. So so that kind of leans on to my third question, that was any plans for the funds outside of funding for athletes, such as a community program or opening gyms or schools or whatever. And no, he essentially said, well, look, those were the requirements. That's what I was told, that they needed to be used to fund up-and-coming jiu-jitsu athletes. And anyone who is pursuing that lifestyle essentially lives on 2-minute noodles, right? Lives on a shoestring budget. So it's almost any up-and-coming athlete could do with the funds, right? So no, like he mentioned that it's not necessarily going to go towards any sort of community project or to help open another gym or something. He then touched on like the juveniles and the juniors. He said, yeah, like, don't get me wrong, the kids, the youth, the juniors are the future. And he's like, but how can you justify, like, I don't know, there's no Australian Colabate, right? That you would go, okay, look at this guy who we've watched since he was 12, 13, 14. Now he's 15 years old and he's
dominating,
and he just medaled at ADCC. Like, and even then you may as well treat him like an adult, right? Like Australia doesn't. Sure, of course, some of the current juveniles and juniors in Australia will go on to be the next best Australian competitor. But I mean, I don't think I mean, he said we don't really have the means to fund one of those yet. Like, how do you even find who that is?
It's only 100k, man. It's only 100k. Like, how far can you stretch 100,000, 150,000 Australian dollars?
Like $100,000 is a lot of money, like in one chunk.
But it's not.
But if you gave an athlete 10k, that could, for them, can just be like, oh sweet, so now I can just train no stress for Worlds. But then that's it.
Yep.
So like that. I mean, once you take your flights, your accommodation, and then maybe you
like pay rent or something, help them out with food and rent and coaching, and
they invest in a bit better nutrition, and maybe they hire a nutritionist with the money, or maybe they hire a better qualified strength and conditioning coach or whatever, and this and that. Like, before you know it, that 10K is gone, right, for one tournament. So,
and if anyone's listening to this that just received Lockie's grant, contact me directly. The discount code Lockie is the best to get 50% off your training program. Only $5,000.
Yeah, so like if it was a 10 athletes, 10K each, that's essentially funding 10 athletes for one competition.
Yeah.
You know, really pretty much one international competition. Yeah. Then I went on to say, will the athletes who receive the funding be announced? And this was interesting because I thought, well, I'd like to know.
That's a good question.
I'd like to know who gets the funding. And he said originally too, he was planning to announce them just for transparency. But then he said, and I don't want to say I disagree with him, but then he said, like, I've decided not to, because I've included the PED clause that anyone take, and he was like, because then I don't want to announce, so then a discussion comes out into
on who's on PEDs or whatever.
You know, okay, so that means that person's not, or why didn't this person get it? They must be on it, or someone who gets it, and people go like, oh, but I know he takes steroids, so he shouldn't have been eligible, whatever. Yeah. So I do agree with him, but at the same time, it's also like, well, just because you announce the winners, it doesn't mean you're outing everyone else who. There'll be plenty of clean people that applied and don't get the grant as well, right?
So, like, say for example, if someone gets the grant that is clearly, their resume is clearly less impressive than someone else. For example, like maybe
that's a good way. Yeah.
You know, and then you're like, oh, hang on a minute, why didn't this black belt that won ADCC trials in their first round and this and that, and Why
this
didn't
brown
they
belt
get
who,
yeah.
Okay, fair
This
enough.
brown belt, they got third at Worlds in 2019 that, you know, is overweight and hasn't done anything since.
Yeah,
No, I'm kidding. Obviously, they wouldn't get the end. I get what Lockie's saying. I think I would like them to announce it. I would like him to announce it.
Yeah. He did say though that
Selfishly.
he was like, look, the people who get it and people who
They can
apply
announce
and
it.
don't get it, he's like, they can talk about it however they want, you know? He's like, some people might not want to. It's like some people might not want to know that they got given money. You know, some people might
Yeah.
like
That's a good point as well.
So he's like,
Like say it also could be added pressure. Like if you're an Australian and you are training toward Worlds, maybe it's, you know, you've done well at brown belt, this is your first black belt Worlds or whatever the case may be, and you've just been awarded like a $10,000 grant and you get smashed at Worlds. You know, you probably don't want that added pressure or the comments being like, oh, fucking wasted that 10K.
Yeah, you know? Right. Yeah, exactly.
Even though it's totally, you know, those comments would be totally troll and bullshit. But, you know, people are weird.
So it's free for the people to discuss it if they want, but yeah, he won't be announcing where the funds go, right?
Well, I hope Jeremy gets a grant.
You remind me again what gym Jeremy trains at?
I have no idea. No idea. Jeremy Skinner is an upstanding citizen. He's the Natty King. Don't you dare insinuate. Yeah, but I hope Jeremy Skinner gets the grant.
Those questions weren't unrelated at all. I was just... Yeah. But also, yeah, like I said, I wish I had remembered to ask him, you know, was it going to be a case-by-case basis or was it going to be, you know, a set sort of 10 athletes, 10K
criteria,
each,
yeah.
five athletes, 20K each, because there might be athletes who need help, but not as much help as someone else. So for some athlete, 2K could do as much as what another person would need 10K for.
Yeah. That would stretch the money a bit further. If say, for example, maybe it acts like an actual grant process. Instead of it being like a lump sum for each people, they apply for a specific thing. Like, say, for example, just take the Worlds, right? Say you have an athlete that's training for Worlds and they're like, hey, this is my training camp for Worlds. These are my flights. This is my accommodation. This is my plan, blah, blah, blah. I need $6,528. And then Lockie looks at that and he's like, yep, sweet, granted. Off you go. And maybe someone else is like, hey, I'm training for ADCC trials or ADCC. I'm expecting to win trials, blah, blah, blah. Here's my resume. I need $10,000 in the next 2 years or something like that. Yeah. That'd be cool.
So this is information
probably complicated as well.
Yeah, information that would have been nice to have, but I didn't sit down and interview Lockie about it. We just had two Facebook messages back and forth, right? So it's not like I don't have all the details. But then my last question I asked him, and regular viewers would be very well educated on how Kieren and I feel as a whole about steroid use and PEDs. Love them. They're the best. But I asked why the inclusion of the PED clause. Some competitions ban steroids and some turn a blind eye, but it's widely seen as an illegal substance. Did you include this simply because you feel it's cheating, or is there a more detailed reason?
I love this question.
So long story short, it's...
Give us a long story.
Okay. Well, why don't you put it down?
Once upon a time.
He said a couple of... I mean, he just put it into nice words, right? So he said, well, firstly, the people getting the grants, he's like, I want that person to be a good role model, right? And he said in his words, I hardly say that someone taking performance-enhancing drugs is being a good role model. He's
Thanks,
like, I see all these juniors taking steroids and whatnot, and he just doesn't think it's the right thing to do. It's not what he wants jiu-jitsu to be, you know, whether it turns out to continue down that path is to some degree out of our control, you know, like obviously, well, I mean, it's in our control the same way that, what's the sort of expression that it's, you know, like if you have enough people, like the people have the power, you know, so like obviously if the community as a whole took a stand against steroids, like, you know, it's within our power, but you know what I mean? It's kind of...
No, I say this all the time. This topic comes up. I like, this is our sport. the royal we, right? Everyone listening to this, assumedly, trains jiu-jitsu. Everyone watching this trains jiu-jitsu. We are the viewership of jiu-jitsu. We are the people that put our money into jiu-jitsu. We make up the competitors in jiu-jitsu. It is in our control. It is our decision whether or not we want steroids in our sport or not. I don't agree with the whole argument that people are going to do it anyway. Like, oh, who cares? Like, people are always going to find a way to cheat. That is the most common fucking argument that always gets brought up. Like, oh, people are always going to find a way to bend rules. That is just such a cop-out. Like, I hate that argument. It is in our control. If, as you said, Adam, if the entire community took a stand, like a firm stand, like I'm taking right now, against performance-enhancing drugs in competitive jiu-jitsu, we would see a drastic change. If ADCC lost 80% of their viewership and their revenue because people were against steroids, would they implement steroid testing? Fucking, you bet your bottom dollar they would.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that's my rant.
Yeah, and I mean, he mentioned look like ADCC, like, because he even said, okay, maybe cheating's not the right word because competitions like ADCC just completely turn a blind eye to it. So he goes, it's not necessarily then cheating by their rules, but he was just like, look, I don't like that you're expecting someone to compromise their long-term health just to make it a level playing field. Yeah. You know, so he's just not about PEDs. And but the first thing he said straight away without hesitation was that I want the grants, the money to be going to someone to be going to someone who'd be a good role model. And I just can't see someone who's taking PEDs as being a good role model. And I agree with that too. I mean, we're not going to have this discussion about steroids again, but that was what he said on it. And so that all kind of ties in, right, I guess, to why he doesn't want to announce where the funds go. But it'll be interesting to see how it develops. I also don't know, and perhaps we'll find out more as time goes along. I'm sure we will. Some people will get the money and announce it, you know. But
sure, out of like how many people are going to get it, like I'm sure someone's going to say it. Yeah,
or we're going to see an Australian person who perhaps haven't seen much competing internationally because of the finances involved. All of a sudden, we're going to see them, you know, competing at Worlds.
Would Levi be eligible? Probably not.
So. Well, I think so.
Well, maybe now because he's living back in Australia. For those that don't know, I'm talking about Levi Jones-Leary.
Yeah, he's living back in Australia. He's done. He's living back here now for sure. He's
won
medaled at those competitions. He's
a black belt.
He did. He's an Australian citizen, unless I mean he's Australian for I don't know. Maybe he was born in India or something like that. But like he's an Australian citizen. He's done most of his progressed through the ranks in Australia mostly.
Yeah.
Like just because he's a famous name doesn't mean he doesn't need the help and.
That's the thing, right?
Like, I mean, when you think
I'm
about
sure he's doing okay, but
But I mean, look, like when's his last big paycheck? When he won the Spider Invitational back when Kaynan won it as well, and that was $100 grand. I would argue that that's all gone now. That money, not because he wasted it on gummy bears, but like fucking it was years ago when there was COVID and you know international flights and everything. Like I even know about. Like Ari and Hope, two also like their partners, two high-level Australian black belts. They did a stint last year where they were needing to qualify, get enough points to fight Worlds. So they were just traveling all around the US, like doing all like the Dallas Open, the whatever Open, the this Open, because you don't have that enough of them over here. And I remember speaking to Hope and when they just got back and she didn't give me the numbers, but she's essentially just like, have like no money. She's like, we spent like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on flights and everything. And, you know, so it doesn't mean that Levi is rolling in money, right? Like, yeah. But, I think he would qualify. When I look at some of the big Australian names who tick those boxes, Well, firstly, like I said, it has to be a brown and black belt. That's what he's put in there. So, and it has to be a brown and black belt who has medaled at these certain competitions. So
we do have a lot of up and coming guys that aren't included in that. Like we have some very strong purple and people that just got their brown belts recently, but they haven't had enough
exactly.
time.
They wouldn't have gotten that medal yet at the comp.
Yeah.
So the chance of it being, for us Australians, the chance of it being someone who you haven't heard of, I think are pretty slim. Right,
Yeah.
because not many Australians medal at said competitions at brown and black belt. We hear about it when they do. So obviously Levi's a big name that I think will qualify. Yeah, Jeremy Paul Skinner, Nico, who just won
brown belt.
Euros weight and absolute, right?
Yep.
Brown belt from Atos, but he lives here in Sydney. And,
he's one of the first people I thought of. Doesn't he train at Grappling Education?
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, they're the three people that come to my mind straight away. There's other brown and black belts
as well.
I can think of.
Brown belt, Nogi, and Nogi Worlds.
Nadia as well.
Nadia,
Nadia is a big consideration. Even Ari and Hope are big considerations as well, right?
Yeah, there's heaps of names we could throw out. There's
and then there's other names as well, but they haven't won that medal or they're not wearing that brown or black belt. So.
When I first saw it, I initially thought of the likes of people like, Bobby Sandu, and there's a couple others that spent a lot of time at B team and up and coming. But again, purple belt, not in that brown or black, and haven't won a medal at a big comp yet.
So we'll so just because you look at Nico and see that, well, he just won Euros weight and absolute. What does he need help for? It's like, well, you don't know, man. Maybe he had to sell his his last pair of undies to buy the flights. Like it's in
and you win the medals and it doesn't come with a fucking check. Like you don't get a $10,000 check with it.
That's right.
It's a $5 Kmart fucking plastic medal, man. Like that's what he got. It cost him all that money to get it.
Like I'm just having while we're here, 2 seconds.
You're looking at flights to the States or something?
I'm just so I mean, like, just to give people
like $3,000 Australian return around that.
Well, is that return? So I'm just having a look now, really quickly, to give you an idea. But if we said, okay, let's go May. End of May is usually around when Worlds are. And let's say return 2 weeks later. Firm, just to give you a rough idea of what we're looking at cost-wise. Slowly, very slowly. Look, people can do this in their own time, okay?
It's probably like $2,000
it's
for the flights. If you look all the way out, 2,000 Australian dollars, and you're paying at least 1,000 to 1,500 for accommodation, add $500 for food and miscellaneous expenses. So you're looking at least 4,000.
It's anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, obviously, like just depending on when you fly and whatever. It's actually not as expensive as I thought, but yeah, I mean, it's still a couple of $1,000s, and then you need accommodation and everything. Yeah. So, like I said, 10K is pretty much just a trip to Worlds. So. So yeah, but anyway, I think it's awesome. It's I think as well, I actually think I know Levi's training for Worlds this year, it's still on his list. I mean, I think for Paul Levi and the mental battle with his jiu-jitsu is that he had his year in 2019, was it?
Yep. And then COVID.
Where he won Euros, then won Pans, and then got DQ'd at Worlds, and then COVID hit. So he didn't get, he was on and then after COVID, won Spider Invitational, and then so was on this trajectory just still to be the favorite lightweight, and then, hasn't really bounced back and recovered from that yet. And I think for sure, Nico will do Worlds at brown belt, I'm guessing, and he's probably going to win Worlds and then get given his black belt. That's what I'm seeing happen. So if Levi doesn't win Worlds this year, I would say there's then a race between Levi and Nico to become Australia's first black belt world champion at Worlds. Like Australia has had people win worlds before, but not at black belt, right? And yeah, so I think if Levi doesn't win this year, then 2024, you could maybe even argue that Nico will be the favorite because he'll still be on his rise. But I don't know. We'll see, man. We'll see. But they're definitely the two contenders.
Tall order to win your first worlds at black belt, though. To win your first worlds,
not many people do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would, still that statement stands that if Levi doesn't win this year, I think the race is between them two to become Australia's first black belt world champion. And hopefully this Grant project, that's a result of it. You know,
I'd like to see some of the no-gi guys go in no-gi worlds at black belt. You know, we have decent amount of no-gi, Australian no-gi competitors.
Yeah, I think the problem with the current Australian no-gi scene is it's not the problem, but the problem with it for that statement is that the Australian no-gi scene, well, there's that too, but it's also just like 99% catered towards essentially ADCC in the sense that none of the guys have their bureaucratic paperwork to compete at IBJJF competitions. So for those not in the know, IBJJF, they do make it hard, but it's not hard if you had the paperwork from day one, right? But if you don't have the paperwork, we would have Australian black belt no-gi guys who the IBJJF would only consider a blue or a purple belt, right? And only let them compete at blue and purple belt because they don't have the paperwork, right? So that's
why
also
aren't
the
they
problem.
steamrolling worlds is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so that's I think the issue with that statement. The Australian no-gi scene is just very, I don't think it's intentionally anti-IBJJF. It's just people just don't do their documentation.
Yeah, because it's expensive.
It is, yeah. Gets to do what you got to do.
Well, man, that was an awesome episode. You educated the shit out of me.
I knew one thing. I mean, 5 things, like he answered. 5 questions he answered. I knew 5
one
things.
thing, and that one thing was Lachlan Giles. That's who you knew.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's all about who you know, bro. Yeah, so that was episode 139, guys. There was definitely anyone who didn't watch BJJ Stars Battlefield, worth a watch. Some good matches in that show, so worth going back and watching some of those. I haven't played that Battlefield yet. I did just, I think while I did see, it's disappeared because it had just popped up like a little pop-up and then disappeared. I thought I had a pop-up saying that Mica had confirmed an MCL injury from the match, but now
breaking news.
But now it's gone. I didn't, because we were recording, I was just like, oh, whatever, I'll come back to it. Anyway, who knows? Yeah. I'm sure by next week we'll know more about it. But yeah, anyway, still some good matches. Lachlan Giles, Grant, maybe we don't hear anything for a while. Who knows? I don't even know if people have already received funding or not. Who knows?
I doubt it.
Next episode is episode 140, so it's our next Q&A. So if you have questions about Kieren living in Sweden, send them, because then next week I don't have to bother recording because it can just be you and Kieren. No, just
you and Kieren. Yeah. Solo-sode.
Yeah.
Yeah, submit your questions. We do have availability for some more questions. We are light on questions, so give us some.
Yeah, so remember, you can follow the link tree in the description, submit the audio question, and we'll hear your voz on the podcast.
Until next time.
Till next time, guys. We'll see you then.